box subscriptions. A few videos ago, I mentioned how they are a fantastic indicator of either current or upcoming market trends. For example, there is a humongous subculture of America that's obsessed with Japan, and that's represented in the vast amount of box subscriptions that already exist for Japan paraphernalia. Boxu, Tokyo Treat, Doki Doki, Japan Crate, Kira Crate, Y Box, Zen Pop, and the list goes on. However, it wasn't until Tippsy Sake that came around that a box represented a brand that was solely dedicated to the sale and evangelization of sake, so naturally this piqued my interest. Their company website states their mission is to make sake simple and fun, which definitely can be accomplished with an A+ delivery box service. But I wanted to indeed prove that their box subscription could make the grade. In an already heavily saturated market, a lot of these box subscriptions provide products that are just wildly overpriced. On top of that, especially for boxes that supply products that represent an inaccessible market, like foreign products supposedly being imported specifically for that box, a lot of them get lazy and just include things that you could easily buy from America anyway. And on top of that, both those issues don't even factor in whether or not the products are good. So with this video today, I'm setting out to answer 3 questions. Number 1, is the Tippsy Sake box fairly priced? Now this is determined by a couple of things. Most of them are subjective, so please keep that in mind. Things like how well and how secure the product is shipped, what extraneous things or information is included in said box, and then of course the markup on the sake itself. Number 2, does Tippsy Sake include products that are either impossible or at least very difficult to find for the average American? This will be kind of a 2-part process where at first I'll try to find them at my local general grocery store as well as my local Asian grocery store. And then second, I'm going to try to find them on online retailers that ship to America as well. And then third and finally, and by far the most fun, I will taste every single sake provided in the first box. I finally get to use my advisor certification and will use that to grade each sake on taste, on smell, and overall experience with some tasting notes as best as I can place. With that being said, let's dive straight into the video. It is a few days later and we are officially back. And we're in mic mobile mode today. Why, you might ask? Is it so I can show off my banana pants?
Bow. Wait, what?
Maybe. No. It's officially been a few days, and essentially the entire experiment has been wrapped up. So let's recap what's been happening. Step 1 of the process was to first unbox the entire Tippsy Sake box. Now, when you go on their website and you select which options you would like to purchase, they actually provide you with 3. A price for paying every 3 months, a price for paying every 6 months, and then a price for paying once a year. Regardless of which one you pick, you can expect a box to be arriving every 3 months. And they even provide like a nice little estimate calendar as far as when you will expect your box or boxes depending on your time of purchase. I went with the most common purchase since that seemed to be the median point, which essentially totaled out to be $96 per box. That's our price to beat. Now, unlike a lot of boxes, with Tippsy Sake, their first box is always the same products, which actually helps us provide a very nice baseline. First point of comparison is how it was shipped, which again, compared to other box subscriptions I have received, this one was by far one of the best. Nothing was damaged or insecure, it arrived perfectly, and of course required a signature for delivery because of the sensitive nature of the contents. Inside, of course, were the 6 300ml bottles of sake, but in addition to that, there were 3 other inclusions. First, an envelope containing cards with information of every sake that was featured in the box. These cards were actually pretty helpful. Not only did they have tasting and smelling notes, but they also featured descriptions on where it came from, information about the brewery, the actual temperature to serve it at, and even what type of food it paired best with. I've never ordered these myself, but I know that a lot of the DIY food delivery services like HelloFresh include a card so you can remake the recipe again. I don't know what quality those come on, but as far as this goes, the cards were pretty hard so that you could easily keep them in a box if you'd like to refer to them later to purchase the sake again. Now, sake isn't like wine. The labels most of the time are exclusively in Japanese, and that makes it really difficult for native English speakers to easily find or ask for specific brews in a grocery store or on the menu of a restaurant. This way, the customer not only has the visual aid of what to look for if they're picking it out of a catalog or a website, but but of course they also have the brand and actual brew name to look up on their own too. Second in the box, and I'm guessing this was only because this was the first box in my series, was the Tippsy Sake Beginner's Guide. Hell, I would have loved to have this as a means of reviewing for the certification test I took for the advisor level. This covers a very good chunk of the information featured on that very test. Everything from the history of sake, the ingredients, how it's made, flavor profiles, and even how to serve it in a variety of ways. It was this specific inclusion that really convinced me that they were taking their overall mission seriously. They really are trying to make sake simple and fun, and this didn't just seem like a cash grab when that was included. And the third was a nice little newsletter, the Tippsy Tribune. This contained interviews with people in the sake industry as well as other upcoming events the website was putting on. It's a nice bulletin for those wanting more information about the company and what they're going to do in the future. Now, with everything laid before me, it now came to step 2, which was to go on the hunt. I was determined to prove whether or not the samples included in Tippsy Sake's boxes really were a exclusive delicacy or just another scam that you could pick up at your local grocery store, like Pocky. The first places I decided to check were places that were in person, aka a place that I could get it for the cheapest amount because there would be no secret inflated shipping fees. Now, obviously, this part of the experiment is highly contingent on where you live. But considering I live in the 9th largest city in the entire country, if you can't find it in Dallas, I can't imagine it'd be easier to find in Buford, Wyoming. First stop on the list was the local standard grocery chain, Kroger. Now, not only did they not have any of the selections, they had no sake, period. With that being a bust, I carted myself over to Central Market, a bit bougier of an option, and it did actually have a really nice sake selection, but still no hits. We were getting closer though, because not only did we find sake, but I found selections from the same brands that were featured in our box. The third and final place I could check was Mitsuwa Marketplace, a big Japanese supermarket, but it's very exclusive. There's only 11 locations in the entire country, and Dallas is lucky enough to have one of them. If any of the selections were to be found in Dallas, it would be here. It boasts a humongous collection of Japanese beverages in general, a large portion of which is alcohol. Sure enough, we finally had some degree of success. I found 2 of the 6 in their 300 milliliter size, one going for $10.49 and the other going for $16.99. Phase 2 of this hunt would continue online for hours. I scoured the internet trying to find places where I could not only purchase the selected brands, but in their 300 milliliter size, which that ultimately became the most tricky part. If I was lucky to find it, and if I happened to find it in multiple places, I selected the cheapest option as my sample size for the sake of this experiment. And by cheapest, I mean not only the price of the sake, but the price of the sake when you included the exorbitant shipping fee. There happened to be 2 samples I simply could not find available for shipping in America. So for those, I found the average cost overall and set that as their estimated value. It was the best I could do. After doing all this research, at this point, I can confidently answer the first 2 questions posed at the beginning of this video. Question number 1, does Tippsy Sake price their box service fairly? Again, a reminder, this is based off the fact that I bought the most common option, which was the 2-box subscription, which estimated each box to cost around $96 US without shipping fees. So essentially, if I had been able to find every single sake in this box locally, which I did not, using the price points for the ones that we found online and the estimates for the ones that we did not, the total was $86.94. Which was very nearly the same. However, if you include the shipping fees, which based off of what we found, we would have had to do for the 4 ones we couldn't find, the total skyrockets to $218.93, which is $120 more than what I paid by using Tippsy. Given that the box doesn't just include these 6 bottles, but a ton of helpful inserts, as well as delivering it all in a very safe and secure fashion, I can undoubtedly say that yes, this box service is priced extremely fairly. Question number 2, how exclusive were the products featured in this specific box? Locally for me, sake only started becoming available in specialty grocery stores like Central Market and Whole Foods. And on top of that, even at one of the largest Japanese grocery store chains in the US, I was still only able to find 1/3 of the bottles that were featured in this box. And that statistic doesn't significantly improve when we go online. Here I had a lot of success finding the quote unquote flavors that were in the box, but either sold in bulk, so I'd end up with like 42 of them, or bulk in regards to the bottle size. Very few sites actually sell those 300 milliliter bottles, which are really perfect for people just getting acquainted with sake. Online, I was only able to find 2/3 of the ones in the box, and that was including massive shipping fees. At a bare minimum, I can confidently say that their starter box boasts some extremely exclusive products. And with that being said, only one question remains. How'd they taste? Well, while I have my sake advisor cert, I am by no means a professional and by no means a sommelier. Gordon Ramsay might hate beets, but he can also tell when someone cooks beets correctly. I say that because I don't know if I can confidently state whether or not sake is good or bad. What I can tell you is what I personally enjoy drinking, as well as my best guess on tasting and smelling notes. So with that, let's get started. Now, I'd be remiss to not kick things off with starting off with our first sample of the day, Tozai's Snow Maiden. Tozai's Snow Maiden comes from the Kyoto prefecture, which many sake do. It's like one of the hubs of sake production, and it is the only nigori sake provided in the bunch. Nigori is often referred to as the unfiltered sake. That is not true. It is coarsely filtered, but legally they all have to be filtered to some extent. Now, while the sake meter value isn't available for this bottle, the acidity was. The acidity is a 1.6, which puts it into the upper tier of acidity levels that you will see for sake, which usually indicate it'll have a richer taste. Go ahead and pour myself a sample, which has that beautiful milky color that it's known for. Now also, for nigori, some sake can be served hot or cold. Nigori can only be served at a chilled temperature. Don't try warming it. Overall, it's pretty light in smell, which is indicative of regular Junmai sake, so I'm not too surprised by that. If I am getting a smell, it's definitely fruity in aroma, and down the hatch. Actually, that's really good. So I'm impressed. So a lot of nigori sake, one of the main reasons it's so popular in America is because it's ridiculously sweet, usually. What I like about this one is that while it's definitely on the sweeter end, it is not overpowering. It's definitely very full in flavor, as I predicted, and has definitely fruitier notes. I would say something more like a melon or a pear. Some nigori, depending on how coarsely filtered it is, can also get kind of like chalky on the palate almost. And I like this one for the fact that it's not. It's definitely more viscous than normal sake, but it definitely isn't milkshake quality nigori. This is Lauren a little bit later, but as I'm going through the card, which I hadn't read beforehand because I didn't want it to get in the way of my review, I'm happy to see I had a pretty good finger on the button of what other reviewers are saying. One of the lines from this card is, Snow Maiden's creamy texture benefits its name and has a surprisingly yet pleasurable dryness for nigori. So there you go. One note that I struggle to pick up on at times when the sake is more dry are notes of rice. And that's one thing the card does indicate that I definitely do agree on. I would say it has that melony or pear flavor with a little bit of aftertaste of rice. All right, I'm coming off a rather hard work day. It's time to do another sake tasting from our Tippsy Sake box. I'm gonna put you down right here. Well, that works for now. So, because the last one we tried was both rich and sweet, I figured the best one to try today would be something light and dry. So I bring you Dassai 45. Unlike Tozai, Dassai 45 comes from the Yamaguchi prefecture at like the from the southwestern tip of Japan. Similar to nigori, this one is recommended that it is also only served cold, so I just popped it out of the fridge. Now its name is actually interesting. I've tried another Dassai branded sake before, and the number indicates the rice polish ratio. Now typically for Daiginjo sake, 50% is like the normal smallest amount of rice left over. So for it to be 45%, hence Dassai 45, that's actually pretty substantially polished. Let's see if I can get the cap off. Ooh, I think I heard the seal burst. Oh, it's like a cork, okay. Woo, there we go. Now again, I've abstained from using the tasting notes. All right, let me get him out of his house. Hang on. You want help? Come here. Whoa! As you can see, Mr. Bo has a beautiful new haircut. Stay tuned for a video on that coming soon. Okay, so back to Dassai 45. It's very similar to Tozai's Snow Beauty in that the smell is not overpowering, which is honestly kind of odd for a Daiginjo sake like this. I would say aroma-wise, it's probably even a little bit less than Tozai's Snow Beauty. It's mostly fruity, but I do also smell floral scents and flavors. I'm honestly the worst at placing, so I usually just keep it at that macro note section and then rely on other people to make it more specific. At least with fruit and other things, you typically are eating them. You're typically not eating rose or lilac, so forgive me for being a little bit weak on how those factor in. Oh God, I just got it on my nose. With that being said, cheers. It has a very interesting flavor. Going back to my misstep on the other one, I definitely taste hints of rice. It is dry, it doesn't linger on the palate at all. I would say it's very clean. It's a very smooth, almost subtle taste, and one that even maybe has like a hint of anise or like licorice, a little bit to it, but not overpowering. And I'm actually not a huge fan of licorice. So today is Sunday, and Mr. Bo and I just got back from a rather brisk morning walk. I need something to warm me up a little bit, so I figured there's no time like the present to try our third sake from the Tippsy Sake box, right? Today's pick of the day is the Kudoki Jozu Junmai Gingo. That's how Tippsy Sake refers to it as. I've also seen it on True Sake's website listed as pickup artist. So searching for either will probably give you the best result. Now this one has an acidity level of 1.2, which is towards the lower end of the spectrum. So it's probably more light in flavor. And additionally to that, it has an SMV of 1. So probably a little bit more middle of the ground considering its dryness versus sweetness. Ooh, okay, already smells good, which is fun. The last two have been pretty light in scent, so I'm excited to try one that has a bit more of a bouquet. Okay, right off the bat, compared to the other two, this one has the strongest aroma to it. I'm definitely getting more like sour fruits, like maybe a pear, or definitely not citrus, but definitely something more tangy like a pear or maybe like a sour apple, and like a little bit of hint of rice. I now keep adding that in because I'm so butthurt I didn't catch it the first time. All right, down the hatch. This is very good. Man, it hits the palate initially with a bit more of like a dry punch, similar to Tozai's Snow Maiden, but doesn't linger at all. No. Sorry, Bo was trying to eat a Kit Kat off the table. But yeah, it has like a very, I think probably the instant punch not only is dryness, but it's kind of more, again, I won't be able to place it, but is more floral in the beginning, and then that evens off to something a little bit more smooth towards the end. Okay, I got some time to kill today. So today we're gonna do two samples. Today we're gonna do a head-to-head competition between the aged Jozen sake and the Tokubetsu Junmai from Suigei. According to both of their cards, they're both light and dry sake, so it'll be interesting to compare and contrast immediately after. Let's start with Jozen. Jozen sake comes from the Niigata prefecture, which is another huge hub like Kyoto for sake production. It is on Japan's western coast, in the middle of the main island. Now, if you're ever looking for this in the grocery store or online, it has a new label. It has a pink label. So when I was trying to find the pricing information for this, I was having no luck because I was looking at the wrong label half the time. So let's go ahead and pour this out and see what we got. So this is very similar in the strength of its smell to the previous one, the Pickup Artist, except this one has a lot more sweeter fruit. In fact, I just got my Tokyo Treat Sakura box. It kind of smells like a lot of the Sakura candy and sweets that were provided. So maybe cherries? If the lighting's a bit different, I had to go charge my phone, so I'm back. So now let's dive straight in. Interesting. I definitely agree that it is a light and dry sake. Weirdly enough, this is the first aged one I've ever tried, but I can't discern a tremendous difference between this and the other samples I've tried at this point. If I had to compare it to something, it actually kind of tastes like a lot of the red wines that I've tried in the past. It has elements of a tannin quality to it. Overall, it's just kind of meh. If it was on a menu and there wasn't a lot of other options, I'd definitely order it again, but I wouldn't necessarily seek it out either. I'd rate it higher up for its perfume versus its taste. And for our second sake of the day, we are trying Suigei, or the Drunken Whale, and this is specifically its Tokubetsu Junmai. Now this brew is actually, I think it's the first one we're trying from the Tippsy Sake box. It's not from Japan's main island. This is from the Kochi prefecture, which is from one of the smaller islands to the southern tip. Now, I believe this is the only one out of the batch. I think I might have tried this before at my local sushi restaurant, but I don't remember. So it must have been before I had started tasting and like leaving reviews. Let's see if my past judgment was good. Now, actually, this is one of the few that on the bottle itself, it specifically lists things like the SMV and acidity levels. So for this one, it has an SMV of +7, which is definitely leaning towards the dry side as opposed to like the +1 we had tried a few days ago. And on this one, the acidity is also a 1.6. So again, a little bit more middle of the road, but technically actually leaning towards being full versus being light. So it's weird that it's described as a light sake. We'll see. Smell-wise, it's really, really light. One trick my teacher told me is to like swirl it around and put your hand on top to keep the perfume inside if it was a lighter brew. It's definitely more of a milder, clean smell. I would say it's probably the riciest out of all the ones that we've smelled thus far. Like it seems a lot similar to putting my head in my rice container, but I don't detect any specific notes other than that. So, down the hatch. Okay, so this one's a lot more dry than the previous one, than the Jozen aged brew, but it has a much cleaner taste. Like it finishes very quickly. Out of the two, this is definitely the one I prefer. As I was looking on the card afterwards, I was checking to see how on point I was. One thing that it says is specifically this brew and this brand take a lot of pride in designing sake that pairs well with any food. So out of all the ones I've tried, this is one I will definitely try to have with a meal later on. It's easy to imagine. This is very similar, where the other one was similar to red wine and how it lingered. This one's kind of like a nice beer. It's kind of like an IPA, where it would really well complement any of the like traditional Japanese food you might find. All right, what up, party people? I just got back from the dog park with my dog, and so I need a cool beverage to help us. Hang on, let me get my selfie stick oriented. There we go, that'll do. So we saved the, I don't know if y'all caught that, I just caught the glass. I will add as a note that the dog park also had a bar. Now today, we saved the best for last as far as my usual flavor profile. This is the Nanbu Bijin Tokubetsu Junmai. This is another bottle that actually has a lot of the helpful statistics for me on the back. And also according to the card, it has an SMV of 0 and an acidity of 1.5, which puts it pretty much almost in the direct center of the flavor profile quadrant, which is usually my favorite. Now, in spite of me coming in from the hot Texas weather, I did just put it in the fridge for a few minutes because the recommendation is that it was served at room temperature. So that's what I was going for, with maybe a little bit leniency towards it being a little bit colder. Ooh. Right off the bat, I'm already really loving the smell. This is definitely one of the more perfumed sake out of the 6 that were provided. This is definitely like what most like apple scented candy, like red apple scent smells like, at least to me. And with that, cheers. Now, in spite of it falling in like the middle quadrant of what you can expect from the flavor profile, on the bottle itself, it does describe it as being leaning more towards full body, which I definitely agree there. It has a nice dryness that does linger on the palate a lot longer than the other ones that I've tried. And in spite of its really fruity smell, which is honestly kind of odd for just a regular Junmai sake like what this is, it has a much more, this is the one I'm most confident has what is described as like a floral taste. I am the most surprised by this one, I think. This one and the Nigori. That's probably because it's a Tokubetsu Junmai, to be honest with you. Dry ones like this, I think, honestly, are better with food than by standing alone. And I do tend to have a preference towards sweet. But for the dry ones I have tried, this is definitely one of the ones I would definitely order again. What a good way to end things on. And just like that, we are done. Aside from telling you the tasting and smelling notes as I did before, here is an overall depiction of my review. When you're looking at my star ratings, essentially this is what each of them mean. 5 stars means I literally cannot get enough. Even if there is awesome other options, I will pay them no mind and stick with what I currently have. I very, very rarely give 5 stars for anything. 4 stars means I might try, other things, but I'm definitely making note of this one, maybe wanting a bottle in my home, and if I see it on a menu again, it'll be the first thing that I pick. 3 stars means it's fine. If it's there, I will drink it, but if the menu is large, I will try something else afterward. 2 stars means I will politely endure it, and obviously 1 star means unpalatable, cannot finish it, will never ever try again. Similar to 5s, I very rarely give 1s. My favorite obviously was Kudoki Jozu, and my least favorite sadly was Dassai 45. Half of the bottles were 3s, half of the bottles were 4s, which I would say was a home run at least for my palate. What I will say is that they offered a wide range of rich and light, sweet and dry. And what I like too is that they featured a lot of atypical types of sake. Everything from the most common nigori to Tokubetsu style, as well as koshu or aged sake. So not only was the sake, at least for me, above average, but it was very diverse. All in all, I think at this point, you can guess my answer for the 3rd question. Is the sake good? Not only is that a definite yes, but at this point, I can happily say that Tippsy Sake's subscription box definitely passed my test. This is leagues ahead of most Japan-oriented food-related box sets, so I am happy to toss them a positive review. Now I say that knowing that there's probably some more good box sets out there, so if you have one that you would like me to try in the future, leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed my review today, leaving me a like on this video means a tremendous amount, and if you'd like to see more from me as well, you can go ahead and click subscribe. With that being said, thank you so much for joining me here today, and I'll see y'all next time. Cheers.